Vinny knew something was wrong the moment she had stepped through the front door. Tavy? The empty hallway threw her voice back at her. Tavy, you home? She should have been back from practice hours ago. The clock on the wall just read just after 11. Vinley would now have winced, and the fur on her neck could not have been raised. The air felt wrong. It was too quiet. All the while the lights are off, Octavia hated the dark. Whenever she was home, the lights in the rooms weren't even on. Vinley was sure why she hated the dark so much, but she had never questioned such an excuse to snuggle tighter under the covers at night. Vinley erased the door shut behind her. Every instinct told her to be on guard. She was usually good at ignoring raw instinct, but right until now, her guts were clenched so tight that she could barely breathe. Both instinct and intelligence told her something was very, very wrong here. She was nearly at the kitchen when she smelt it. There was no mistaking that copper-trained tang in the air. Blood. Her mind had spilled out of habit. The limiters were still in place, just like always. The loop was still intact, even after all this time, buried under so many layers. She worried about doing something that could give her away. Right now, however, too much of her was panicking to even think about how she looked. Blood in her house? In her home? How? Why? Whose? Tavia? Alarms secluded through her. She kicked the kitchen door open with such force that can handle that lodged onto the wall. Blood sent it with her in the same level of force, lodging her nose in the throat like barbs. Her nostrils flared and her eyes widened. Her mouth became a shrinking zero of surprise and horror. Damn it, she should have been moving. Why is she staring like a deer on a train track and like Canterlot Express barrels towards it? The pony on its hind legs looked over his shoulder and smiled. It was, in all fairness, a nice smile. In a nice face, a backdrop of white fur, and eyes that crinkled at the corners. This face, though, those wrinkles to say, smiles a lot. It wasn't until you got the eyes of your opinion change. Even then, some ponies may not realize. Ponies were not actually perceptive when it came to spotting dangers amongst their own kind. They were a race focused outward, looking towards the horizon outside the perfect little society. It was probably some throwback to a bygone age, when they still lived in the herds and had never conceived of things like cities, houses, or mass murdering psychopaths. Ponies didn't kill. Ponies didn't hunt their own. Vinley had always found a useful characteristic to various ends of her own. The stallion's raw presence was so intoxicating that she didn't even need to say anything. She just had to be there. Few ponies flocked to him. They never saw the pinpricks of cunning deep into those eyes. They didn't even recognize the calculation in this every nod of gesture. Mostly, they never got past the smile, not until it was surely too late. Vinley remembered that smell all too well. "You're home!" His voice was handsome, and as the rest of him. A silent accent clung onto those words, not enough to be noticeable, but enough to make his speech patterns more formal and attractive to the ear. A true predator did not miss a track. "We are beginning to think you were not coming home, my dear. Why were you away late at work?" Vinley tried so hard to keep herself steady. "Put her down, Veron." "Well, there is a nice hello, and after I made such an effort to be civil to—" "Put her down." He sifted his gaze. "Oh, but we were just having fun waiting for you to arrive. You always had such a good taste, my dear." "I see that you haven't changed," he grinned. "I might have had a little taste, but you did keep us waiting for an awfully long time." Octavia's eyes were huge with panic. She then stared at Vinley, who might have run to her and not pinned her against the wall beside the counters with all four hooves off the ground. There was blood on her shoulder. It didn't show red, just darkened as her gray fur into black tufts where Veron's mouth had been. Several dark lines traced a path like a filigree in her hoof tip. She had bled enough to make splatters on the floor. "Vinley?" she stuttered. "Run!" Vinley? His chuckle then coated her name like oil slick. "Seriously? All the names in the world you could have been with, and that was your choice?" He shook his head. "So you did name yourself after that record or fabric?" "No, wait, I see you've been drawing on yourself. Musical notes? accord then? I am disappointed in you, Vendela. I thought you were more than imagination. Don't freak, don't freak, don't freak, don't freak, don't freak. Vinley's mind was tripped over itself as she fought the stimulation's impulses to run, fight, and just stand there gawing at the voice, that damned voice she had spent too many sleepless hours trying to tear out of her memory. And now here it was. Here he was. Here, in her kitchen, in her home. He couldn't be here. She couldn't let him be here. Stupid, stupid, stupid. This is all my fault. I should have guessed. I should have known. He was watching her. Vinley swallowed back her recriminations. Put her down. You know you don't want her. Don't I? His tone remained playful, but very thin veneer. No, you want me. Octavia looked between them. She had no idea. She had no freaking clue. All she had an inkling of how much danger she was in. Her bleed in her shoulder, her fierce sink told her on Vinley's painful senses that much. Yet she didn't even know the rest. She didn't even know who Veron was, that Veron was, or why he was here. Otherwise, she wouldn't be telling Vinley to run. Or maybe she should. This was Octavia, after all. The kitchen was a mess. She had fought him. Somehow that pleased Vinley. No way her girl would go down without a fight. No frickin' way. Except this was Veron that had very, very stupid way. To think that if he could swallow Octavia, to fight back. It wasn't because she posed an actual threat. 99% of everything he did was just for his own amusement or gain. The remaining 1%, Vinley didn't even want to think about that. Ooh, the world became a purr in Veron's throat. Offering yourself up? Trying to exchange yourself? How noble. Octavia squeaked as he pulled her closer. Vinley's spine pricked with panic and anger. He nuzzled onto Octavia's throat, inhaling the terrified earth pony's scent, like a kitten finding a spot to nap. Leave her alone, Veron, Vinley gritted. I was wondering whatever you set up the house here for a pet. It was the most palatable option I could ever think of. When I first tracked you down, you know that I saw when I first spotted you in this squad little bit of suburban nightmare? His lip curled, revealing a bit of hint of curvature. Octavia trembled. I saw you carrying groceries and all that through the front door. Brown paper bags, utterly mundane, utterly not you. But a pet would be acceptable. Tell me that this is a pet, Vendela. Tell me you haven't been so stupid as I suspect you've been. Vinley, what's going on? Octavia whispered. Vinley glared as the strength of her eyes alone was enough to floor him. Put her down. Oh dear, Veron sighed. I had hoped that you hadn't fallen in such tirelessness of this stack-up moral of act out of the plot of some subpar romance novel. Please do not tell me you believe in her. Love her, Vendela. That would be too cliche even for you. Vinley didn't even answer. What was she supposed to say? Confirming that denying the truth would only end badly. The old argument would comply arose inside her. She shifted her gaze, avoiding the meat in his eyes directly. Keep it together. That isn't you anymore. You don't have to do what he says. You have your own mind, and you can't force it to do anything you don't want it to do. Keep it all together, Vinley. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Veron pulled away from Octavia, shaking his head. Such a shame. And here I was thinking that we could be reunited amid this wondrous surprise that you have to live for after all the declarations, that you had finally seen the error of your ways and planned to come back to where you belong. He smiled. There was a less warmth than a blizzard. I did after all. I think you were gone from this world. I mourned you, Vandela. I'm so... He paused as to refresh his word, happy to find I was mistaken. Mourned her? That's not even funny. Vinley? Octavia's cheeks were wet. She wasn't gulping at the air that she was getting so upset or angry. She made herself cry with frustration. Terrified tears leaked silently from the corners of her eyes. This Vinley name, I do not like it. Stop calling her that. Veron shook her for good measure. Octavia's head jogged a little like a balloon on a stick. Her name is Vandila. Say it with me now. The little pony, Vandilda. Veron, stop this. Bingley cursed in desperation that crept in her throat. Why do you call me Daddy Vendela? Would anyone think you do not care for me at all? Bingley couldn't look away from Octavia. I'm sorry, she thought. I'm so sorry. I should have told you. I should have been more honest. But how could I? How could you have believed me? And even then, by some miracle, Octavia then believed in the wild and crazy story. What then? She would have had Bingley, or if she hadn't, she would have never had the peace of mind again. Would the truth be stolen from something, both of them, that could never get back? The only debatable things were of what and how much. Veron glanced sharply at Bingley. The sudden movement dragged her attention away from Octavia. The whites of his eyes had darkened to pink. He recognized this as a sudden burst of anger, thinning his pupils into slits. Her stomach lurched, and she took involuntarily to step forward, foreleg raised as she wanted to pull him off of his prey. It was the worst thing she could have ever done. I thought so. Veron's mild tone did not match his expression at all. You have fallen for this one. Oh, Vendela, my poor, poor, dear Vendela, do you not know what this poor, pure foolishness lay with mortals? Certainly, but never fool yourself into thinking you love them. And certainly do not leave your family for them. Pink shadowed onto the red as he turned his attention back to Octavia, hugging her tight against him like a lover. Was that the way you wanted to make me believe you were dead? For this little scrap of flesh and bone? And feelings? His lip curved. Yes, I think so. The way you look at her, and the way she looks at you, she has taken your heart. Octavia's chin rested on his shoulders, facing Bingley. She then opened her mouth to speak again, faster than Bingley could blink. Veron's elbow jutted out, and then forward. A wet crunch echoed off the kitchen walls. No! The cry whipped from Bingley, as Octavia gasped and staggered. Whoops! I think I just broke hers. He came for her the night before the festival. She was wearing the frock Mother said she had worn at her age. She hadn't inherited her mother's dark fur, but the yellow fabric just looked as against white. She laughed and pranced as her mother tried vainly to tie her ribbon to her tail. Winter song, her mother laughed. Still hold you, or shall you look such a mess? But the unicorns and fillies will be setting off the fireworks soon, Mother. Why must we wear a ribbon at all? Because every pony looks their best for the festival, and you look pretty in ribbons. I look foolish. Pretty, the mother insisted, pulling her close with magic. It always went like that. Magic was the only way that would keep her still long enough to be decorated, no matter how pretty the dress was or silky the ribbon was. Mother! The cottage door slammed open. Both of them gasped instinctively. She hid behind her mother's skirts. They hated each other, dressed up for the festival, and whole fold fabrics shielded her completely from whoever was trotting inside. What matter if the ill-breeding equine would? Her mother stopped abruptly. You, she said, in a quite different tone. Good evening, Spring Blossom. My, you do look quite lovely tonight. Are you going somewhere? No, Mother breathed. No, you can't be here. This isn't... How did you find me? A fine green after I came all this way and paid you a compliment. This is too soon. She's only a filly. The stranger sighed. Soon is relative. My arrival is not too early for my estimation. Merely yours. You promised you would not return until she's come of age. And you said you would raise her in a luxury. This cottage seems somewhat less than the finery in which I first found you. The stranger tutted. You led me to idly of a chase to find you. A new home, a new name, and you even dispelled your book and look of different. Do you really truly think you could hide from her from me like this, Spring Blossom? For shame. When you told me you said 18, I've changed my mind. You cannot. I reassure you again, my dear, that I most certainly can. You speak if we were equals who sat down to parley and discuss terms. The stranger laughed. Any terms of our agreement, wherever yours is to defy, it has suited me for then you to take care of the business, raising her while I tended to other concerns away from this land. I thought she would have access to high society, so to be accepted amongst other quarters, and nobles as she grew up one of them. Indeed, I have also found quite amazing that you could also blackmail me with your own identity when you discovered the truth of it. No doubt that you would be replenishing from your family name, and fortune that would follow you, allow you to hide from me. But you were in the wrong. I can always find those who have my blood in their veins. Now it suits me to retrieve what is mine, and so I have come for hers. No, I will not let you. She's just a fool. You won't let me? The stranger's voice tilted pleasantly, looking nice, as if he crossed the floorboards just a few quick strides and shoved his face into Mother's. He sounded like he was complimenting the weather or asking politely for directions to the nearest alehouse. You are right. She is a fool. She is my fool. Or did you forget that? Just look at her. Spring Blossom. Look at her and tell me. She is not mine. I, Mother stuttered. Please, you can have others. You said you had others, and she's too young. Please leave her with me a little longer, so that you may spirit her away and try to hide her again. Now that I can find her. Would you try to run against her as her father as she grows? I think not. At least for her to have her foolhood first. You speak as if I mean her ill. This always seems the way they're going to be. Spring Blossom, you knew in your heart that I would come eventually. I have elected to alive 11 years before you expected me is neither here nor here. Or did you have think hiding yourself away from that little hovel and trading your fine clothes for jewels and a new identity to buy you more time? Did you intend to roll her in mud and wall her when her 18th year came and tell me she was some pony else? Did you honestly think you could help her keep her away by pretending you were a peasant? You, nobility, shines right through the worst grime. My dear, you are as lovely as the day I chose your woohoo. Who? You chose to make me your broodmare, the mother spat. And yet you did, I see you cast her off a cliff. Others before, or as much as are taking themselves to die, when they find themselves bearing my foals, the truth wriggles in their bellies. Some even die trying to get rid of themselves of their pregnancies. But, I do not think it crossed your thoughts. You were always so soft, Spring Blossom. In truth, I am surprised you gave up on wealth so easily to keep her away from me. Or me from her, clearly. Did you not mind laying with me very much if you were willing to raise and get safeguarded like some precious thing after you know the truth of her heritage? What is her name? Please, Mother begged, leave us be and leave her be normal. What normal, Spring Blossom? To be normal is to be a weak. I will teach her to be strong. I will teach her to make strength as her birthright. Doesn't have to be, her mother shouted. If you leave her alone with me, she could be a normal pony. The stranger clicked his tongue against the roof of his mouth. I tire of this fool. What is the name? Suddenly, the mother's skirt were gone and she was exposed. She stared up at the stranger. A crash of body then went to the wall and made her tremble. Mother! The candle lay on its side of the floor, flame guttering. Her mother had told her never to be let near the flames touch the floorboards. She scrubbed the boards every week and was very proud of them. Now wax dripped onto the wood and candle flame licked greedily at them. Here, little one, she murmured to the stranger. Look at me in the eyes. No, I won't, Winter song. Run! Mother coughed as she stumbled on her hooves. Red stained her hairline. Run far away and don't look back. She couldn't move. She was transfixed by the stranger's peculiar eyes. They seemed almost inhumanless, that the flickering of the candle glow. The whites darkened pink as he murmured pleasantly. There are we. Good girl. You are a good girl, aren't you? You're my girl. My own street girl. Her mouth ran dry. She couldn't even blink as she watched the dark pink fervor. Some pony held a glass of red paint in front of the candle. The chair Mother had been sitting on was slammed into the stranger. He hurled on sideways to the side wall and slid down, increasing the sparkle blue magic. The chair rose again and smashed on him, shattering all of its legs. Run now! Mother shrieked at her, her horn aglow. Run, Winter's song! As she ran, blinded by the tears, She still ran out of the darkened evening. Her tiny hooves ate up the ground as they ran as fast as she could. She was halfway down the hill before she realized that following the right path might be a stupid idea and banked a left, aiming for the forest tree line. A scream abruptly made her stop. What was the first many mistakes that she would make with him? He landed in front of her as if a great leap. Red eyes slid lid to lid to save her from the incandescent and white ring around each spill and pupil. He looked like a demon straight out of a Tartarus. She screamed and tried to run again. He had no horn or wings under his cloak. She could outrun him if she could just get to the village. Maybe she could. He overtook her by madcap dash and plucked her up in his forehooves. She weighed nothing. She kicked and fought as he brought her face close to hers. Her struggles ceased when he bared his teeth. A pair of pointed fangs gleamed at her. Winter Song, he said thoughtfully. I do not like that name. It is a weak name for a weak pony who hides behind her mother like a coward. You shall have a new name to begin with your life. What did you do to mother? Her voice came out of a squeak. You will think no more about her, he said dismissively. If I simply saying what was enough to make it, that life is over. Your real life begins now. Real life? The stallion smiled, his white fan round his face, making sure the shadows danced across his fur. Vandala, yes, I like that name. It means strength where I come from. I'm going to teach you how to be strong. Vandala, it is unfortunate that your sister died so unexpectedly. But things are the way they are, and because of her stupidity, you will now take her place at my side, and sooner and late learn from your rightful place in this world. He pulled her close. No! She didn't know what she was going to do, but the whispers of his breath against her throat ignited fresh panic in her belly. He held out her again and shook her. Do not misbehave. I am your father. You will show me the respect I am due. She stared at him. Her father? Mother had told her father died before she was born. How was it they lived in poverty? Father had not made a will and mother had lost everything. Was that why she never spoke much nicer than the ponies in the village, but still worked for them, cleaned their homes? That was a second mistake. She should have not met his gaze. It snagged it like a hook into eyeballs. Something alongside pulled her towards him, writhing and twisting, a riffle snake, slowly uncoiling its burrow after a long sleep. He pulled her close again. This time, she was plump. Her neck burned. It just felt horrible. This time she stayed awake out for too long in the summertime, and she had heat sickness. She gagged, especially when she heard swallowing close to her ear. Her vision was starting to gray out when he put her down. She couldn't stand, but that didn't seem to matter. Firm hooves turned to face upwards, and he pulled down at her lower jaw. She coughed as coppery liquid slid down her throat. No! The stallion's voice seemed to come from far away, but his hooves were a vince around her muzzle. Swallow it all! No daughter of mine shall have a half strength because she botched her own awakening. She then continued to cough and choke, eyes flying open. She couldn't breathe. She could barely think. The snake inside her was made of fire and hot metal. It thrashed and sliced through her other organs. Her gorge rose. It tasted vile. She still had her mouth shut. The backs of her eyes prickled as she stared up at him, pleading her to let him to let her spit it out, whatever that vile thing was shredding her guts. Gradually, the burning flowed upwards, spiraling down her legs and up towards her hoofs, lighting every nerve ending ablaze. She was made for the fire and flesh, and tears that ran and sizzled away in the flames to their own destruction. Her eyeballs were going to explode. His face was all the way to the sky behind it, tinted red. I have never had a unicorn daughter before, he purred. Let's see if you're any stronger than the others. With the guts on fire and her mind on turmoil, she died for the first time.